everything right, Ariana? Great. Okay. Then it's my pleasure to introduce our visiting scholar from Pakistan, Dr. Ghulam Murtaza Jamro. We're really pleased to have you here to talk about some soils we don't often hear about, and maybe a little bit of your research in Minnesota if you get there too. But thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Oh, and we're not on the actually. Okay.
Okay, so I'm Dr. Ghulam Murtaza Jamro, professor. Here I'm visiting professor. Before coming here, I was working at Sindh Agriculture University, Tandojam campus, Umarkot, as a professor in the Department of Soil Science. I did my PhD from University of Alberta, focus on oils and reclamations, especially the biogeochemistry and fine root dynamics of the oils and reclaimed soils. So today I will talk about basically the dryland agriculture, which is a very important component of Pakistan as well as the globe. But how can we handle with those soils with the plant nutrition? So potassium is very important plant nutrient to handle like these soils. So these are outline of my presentation. So I will talk about the brief about Sindh Agriculture University, Tandojam, then dryland status in world and in Pakistan, major soil constraints, why potassium matters in dryland agriculture, nutrient mining, especially for soil K status, causes of low fertilizer use in Pakistan, calcareousness, and soil salinization, which are most common two issues of dryland soils. And then the couple of issues which are rising by climate change, which are temperature and drought, and other studies and projects which I have taken during my career. And then what are the policy and extension gaps and strategies to improve the potassium use. So Sindh Agriculture University, Tandojam, which is started from research station from 1904 and then established in 1977. So these are some stages of the development of the Sindh Agriculture University, Tandojam. So this university contains the 5 faculties, including Faculty of Crop Protection, where we mostly deal with soil science, agronomy, plant breeding and genetics, horticulture and crop physiology. And in Faculty of Crop Protection, where we study entomology, plant pathology and plant protection. And then Faculty of Agricultural Social Sciences, which comprise of the departments of Agriculture Education Extension, agriculture economics, statistics and rural sociology, and then agriculture engineering, which comprise of Department of Irrigation, Land Water Management and Energy and Environment and Farm Power and Machinery. Then animal husbandry and veterinary sciences, lot of around 30 departments over there. Then Institute of Food Sciences and Technology, Information Technology Center. Then there are 2 campuses, Khairpur College of Agriculture, Engineering and Technology and Sindh Agriculture University campus, Umarkot, where I am working nowadays. And then this is the status of the students and graduates produced. So currently we have around 9,400 students, including undergraduate and master and PhD students. And we produce around 27,000 students undergrad and 19,000 around master and 300 students PhD. So these are my students who worked under my supervision for master degree program mostly. So this is the general picture. So there are the 2 different scenarios. One is a natural scenario and the other is a developed by us. So our climate change. So if you see the first figure, which is actually from the one of the dry land in my province, that is Third Desert. So this picture is actually showing what is before the rain. But after rain, that area become completely green. So this might be due to some like metabolic pulses, which is already available, the organic matter from the fall season. And then after application of after rainfall, the decomposition start, and then seed bank is already there, and that seed bank start to grow. So it become a lush green. And then the second scenario, which is because of the climate change. So our like a major cropping area is becoming nowadays in drought, affecting drought and becoming a dryland agriculture. So drylands are a very important biome on Earth. And around a 95% area of the 55 developing countries, with Australia having the largest area, and including the other China, Russia, United States, and Kazakhstan, and covers around a 40 to 41% area of earthland surface, and which is home of 2.5 billion peoples, which live on a dryland area. And then the degradation cost of these dryland area is around 4 to 8% of their national GDP. And it is expected after every year, 10% increase dryland is expected due to climate change. Why we drylands are matters? So they are classified into different categories based on the precipitation and potential evapotranspiration. So including the arid, semi-arid, dry, subhumid, and other including hyper-arid areas, which are available in whole world. So what are the threats of drylands? So the climate change and overgrazing, and deforestation, and water scarcity leading to the desertification in semi-arid areas or humid areas. So what is the status of dryland in Pakistan? Around 80% of area of Pakistan is classified as arid to semi-arid, except in some northern areas. So and then the dryland areas, major dryland areas are Cholistan and Thal Desert, which are in Punjab province. Another is the Tharparkar, which is in Sindh. And other some areas are Kohistan and Balochistan. Those areas are also present in Pakistan. So if you see the agroecological zones, so there are different agroecological zones are commonly available in Pakistan. But dominant cropping system are wheat, cotton, wheat, rice, and which contribute around 85% of cultivated land. And wheat is 48%, rice is 15%, and cotton is 15%, sugarcane is around 7%. So in my country, the major fruit crops are grown, citrus, mango, banana, date palm, apricot, and apple. So this is area, so total area is 79.6 million hectares, and among them, 41 is million hectare area under arid area, and 36.9 in semi-arid, and 5.6% in subhumid area. And desert is around 11%. If we see the forest area is around 3.5 million hectares, but most important, the salt effect land area is around 7 million hectares. So what are the major constraints of the drylands of Pakistan? The most important is the nutrient depletion, then the low organic matter, which is less than 5% in most of soils, salinity and sodicity, which is around 6.7 million hectares, water logging in mostly canal command area, then soil erosion and dryland in hilly regions, and some other contamination from industrial effluents also. So if we talk about the plant nutrient deficiency status in soils of Pakistan, the 100% soils are deficient in nitrogen because of the low organic matter. Phosphorus is due to calcareous nature is 80 to 90%. Potash is 40 to 50% are deficient. Zinc, boron, iron, those are mostly related to calcareous nature. So they are also 60 to 70%, and zinc, boron 30%, and iron is 20 to 30%. But when we talk about the use efficiency of these soils, so nitrogen, when we apply any fertilizer, so nitrogen is 40 to 60%, phosphorus is 20 to 30%, potash is very high, 70 to 85% use efficiency when we apply. But micronutrients efficiency is very low because of the calcareousness. So these are basically the why nutrient deficiency, the most important limiting factor, are affecting the soil health of the soils of Pakistan. And because of low nutrient use efficiency, we are getting very low crop yields or stagnant crop yields. But because due to the recent climate changes, we expect around 1 to 4% decrease in yield in wheat. Rice would be around 3 to 17%. Cotton is 16 to 18%. So these are, and which can threaten the future food security of Pakistan. So what can we do? And what is the solution? So one of the potential solution is adequate mineral nutrition plays a key role in maintenance of integrity of plant structure and physiological process of drylands of Pakistan. So why we think about the potassium? So potassium is very aging element, improving the life potency of humans on this globe. Potassium is antioxidant, and it enhances stress tolerance such as salinity, drought, insect attack, and diseases. It regulates plant-water relationship, stabilizes yield under stress, improve nutrient balance, and most important, improve quality of produce. So this is the potassium dynamics. So potassium is present in actually in 4 forms. One is readily available potassium in soil solution, and which is around 6 to 48 kilogram K2O per hectare. Then the readily exchangeable potassium, which is because of the organic matter and clay surfaces. So potassium as a positive charge is used to be exchanged on the site, and it can be available for the plant with time passage. Slowly exchangeable potassium, which is also trapped by the clay layers. And then the last one is which is present in the soil silicate clay minerals, and which is a large amount, 90 to 80%, 90 to 98% potash is present in mineral form. So we can think about that how can we make available the fixed form or the exchangeable or slowly readable P by different strategies, especially in dryland agriculture. So what is the nutrient mining of, especially the picture is very important to see the potash. So nitrogen is around 54,000 tons per hectare. Phosphorus is 281,000. And if you see the figure of the potash, it's around 465,000 tons. Potash is being extracted or mined from soil. So the reason is that we are not applying too much K. So if you see this figure, which is actually the adoption of different nutrients by the farmers in Pakistan. So majority of farmers apply major nutrients. In case of major nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus. So nitrogen is around 94%. Phosphorus is around 90%. But if you see potash, which is around 1.3%, potash is being used by the farmers. So there are a lot of reasons. One of the potential reason is maybe the awareness issue. So if you see here, but overall, if you see what is the alarming rate of the potash every year, which is around 0.3 kilogram per hectare per year of potash is diminishing in soils of Pakistan. And this might be linked to, most important, the intensive cropping. There is no very minimal crop rotations is there. So we are cultivating continuously in our soils, which are under cultivation. Then groundwater exploitation, high yielding varieties. They extract more K from soil for producing the biomass than inadequate application of K fertilizers. So which has exhausted the soil K reserves in dryland agriculture, dryland soils of Pakistan. So what are the causes of low potassium fertilizer use in Pakistan? So we have a myth that what we are applying through the canal irrigation water, which is rich with K. So farmers think about that our soils are already rich in K. And then our canal irrigation is also contain K, so we don't need to apply. So this is the common myth. That's like the farmers are considering for K use. Then the lack of awareness of balanced fertilizations. So we are just relying on the nitrogen nowadays, even reducing the potash, phosphorus also. Then the fertilizer recommendations is also for general recommendations are there, but there should be like crop specific for potash use. Then the fertilizer prices and availability of K fertilizer is very important issue nowadays. Prices are increasing and availability is also reducing. Then another hurdle or important property of the dry land which is calcareousness, and which is actually the inherited soil property because soils are formed from the calcium carbonate. So they are around 1/3 of the global soils are calcareous, and they are characterized by the presence of calcium carbonate and consequently free accumulation of calcium carbonate in soil profile. They can cause the calcareousness in soils. In case of Pakistan, around 20 million hectares of soils are calcareous. And they are mostly formed from alluvial parent material derived from calcareous rocks in the Himalayan regions of Pakistan. The alluvial material is actually transported and deposited by mighty Indus River, which is around 3,000 kilometers from Tibet to end of Pakistan. So, which carry like the calcium carbonate material and then deposit in different places, and then soils have been developed due to this one. Calcareous soils contain around 5 to 30% of calcium carbonate of Pakistani soils. Then their alkaline pH is there. And then low potassium activity ratio, because this is very regulating factor in calcareous soils. Then these are like commonly found in 3 major provinces, Sindh, Punjab, Balochistan, because they are like the soils are there calcareous in nature. So this is just I want to show you. So this is actually the one area in my province. These hills are actually made up of calcium carbonate. So when there is a different rainfall, events are used to be happening, then they carry the calcium carbonate. And then that calcium carbonate used to be fall down in river Indus or even some soils, so that can cause the calcareousness in soils. So these are the common issues with the potash availability for plant uptake due to calcareousness, soil texture, which is very regulating factor because K is sometimes fixed also in clay soils and leach in sandy soils, but we have very small amount of sandy soils, especially in desert areas. Then the high calcium carbonate can limit this one. Then alkaline pH, which is very important regulating factor. Then nutrient interaction, especially the sodium, can affect the potassium availability in these, especially salt-affected soils. So what is K activity ratio in calcareous soils? So activity ratio is actually the ratio of potassium to other basic cations, especially calcium, magnesium in the soil solution. So if in a general, high K activity ratio indicates a greater supply of K, while a low ratio indicates a lesser supply of K. So if we have a high K activity ratio, means there will be a greater supply of K. But if there is a lower ratio, so there will be like a lower amount of the K would be available. So high calcium carbonate, calcareousness soil produce low K activity. So if we have like more calcareousness, there will be like a low K potassium ion activity ratio, and resulting the limited supply of potash to the plants. So thus, we can assume that low potassium activity ratio means the soils need a higher amount of K fertilizer. Or if a high K activity ratio means lower rates of K fertilizer may be sufficient. Okay. So this is the relationship between the K activity ratio between seed yield and soil K content with leaf K concentration. And then similarly, the soil K activity ratio with leaf concentration. So the relationship is highly significant. So if we increase the low K activity ratio, means leaf K concentration is also increasing, means that uptaking is more by the plant. And similarly, as a consequence of the more K activity, yield of the sunflower plants was increased. So this is based on the survey we conducted in sunflower growing areas. So this is the 4R nutrient stewardship, which is like the new concept in Pakistan. So in calcareous soils, so one of my PhD students, he finished thesis on this area. So if you see here, so we compare the different sources. So it means there are two more common sources of K is being used in Pakistan, which is sulfate of potash and muriate of potash. And there were like a different calcium carbonate levels. So this study was a part study, and artificially calcareous soils were developed. So there was a significant effect of source and calcium carbonate levels. So if you see here, the sulfate of potash found a better source as compared to muriate of potash. The reason is that these soils have like a more the chloride content, especially the soils are coastal area. So in coastal area, there are a lot of issues of the cyclic salts are over there. Even the soluble salts also going over there, upward movement of from the underground water. So soils have become a saline in these coastal area. So if we apply muriate of potash, that increase more chloride content, and that affect the crop yield. So addition of sulfate of potash increasing the yield because we also add the sulfur, which is also another essential nutrient. And calcium carbonate, if you see here, with increasing the calcium carbonate level, the shoot weight of the sunflower plant was decreased. So another like R is the rate of K. So we applied like the 2K of K fertilizer. One is a 60 kilogram, another is a 120 kilogram. 60 is most common recommendation for the major crops. So here again, like if you see here, so the effect was significant between rate and calcium carbonate level. So we increase the potassium rate, the shoot weight of the sunflower was increased from 8.09 to 8.45 gram per pot. So this is the, so it means like the soils having like more calcareousness response more K application, because the soils are like have like more calcium carbonate, especially in calcareous soils. Similarly, the growth is shoot weight is also reducing with the increasing the calcium carbonate level. So we combine them together. So rates of NK and source K. So 60 and 120 and SOP. So again here, if you see here, so we got a more like the yield, especially this is a field experiment and was conducted at moderately calcareous soils. So yield was like higher at 160, 100, 1,658 kilogram per hectare. And then similarly, the SOP found like a promising source for the increasing the sunflower yield. So the leaf concentration was also found more with the sulfate of potash as compared to muriate of potash. And similarly, we found more K concentration with a 120 kilogram of K. So this is the methods of the K application. So, and timing also. So if you see here, we use three methods: broadcasting of K, then the site bending, then the fertigation, and then apply like at the time of sowing, and then the first irrigation. So because the most of time the availability of K is not for the farmers, so it often like the missing at the time of sowing. So it was very necessary that is it okay to apply like the first like the irrigation. So we found like if we like the side bending was a better method as far as seed yield is concerned, then oil content is concerned, and then the K concentration. Similarly, for the swing is better than the first irrigation. So we should apply the K at the time of swing. So another is because this is the moderately calcareous soils, and again, we apply, this was through soil, and this is through the foliar application, because these two recommendations are commonly found. So if we miss it, then better to we apply like through the foliar application. So in case of foliar application, so we apply like a different 2% and 1%, and then the 0.67% at flowering stage. And then we use like here three sources. One is sulfate of potash, muriate of potash, and nitrate of potash, or potassium nitrate, which is also used in for foliar. So that's why we consider this one. So if you see here, so the S2 and S3 is almost like the same results as compared to S1. And similarly, the treatment, the three treatment effect was also there. So we conclude that we should apply at the flowering stage, we can apply 0.67%, or if we miss it, then earlier stages. But if we apply like in fluorescence or early stage, we can apply 2% of potash in foliar form in case of the nitrate of potash. So another problem is soil salinization. This is a persistent soil problem in drylands of Pakistan. And so if we think about that, there are the 6 to 7 million hectares land of salt affected. And there are three types of the salt affected soils. One is the saline soil, where like the soluble salts are more in concentration than sodic soil, and then saline sodic soils. So we have like the different like the area is also there. So we have like a saline soils as compared to like more like other types. So what are the key reasons of the salinity development in Pakistan? So poor quality irrigation water, because with shortage of water, we are taking out, extracting the underground water, and they can cause the saline soils. Then sometimes the water logging, especially in canal command area of the different canals of Pakistan. So there will be like the capillary rise, and even the flood irrigation that can also cause the salinity over there. Then poor drainage, which is most common issue on our farm sites. Then due to high temperature, salts are coming on surface. And then this is in the coastal area, which is actually the seawater intrusions or cyclic salts cause the salinity in the coastal area. So, so this is the one of the project where I worked as a team member. Recently, we finished that project with ACIR, Australian government project with two universities, Mehran University of Engineering and Technology and my university. And we reclaimed like some site over there by application. But one thing is there, I just want to mention that nowadays we thought that the salinity is not ending property, which is increasing over there. So we have to live with salinity. So we have a used approach of the biosaline agriculture by growing the trees, salt-tolerant trees on these areas. So we made the reclamation of these pieces of land through cultivation of the tree crops over there. So why potassium is very critical under salinity? So one is maintain the potassium sodium balance, which is very important for the crop yield. So salt tolerant plants have the potassium sodium ratio, try to maintain 5 to 20. So if it's reduced and then the sensitive crops have like the 1 potassium sodium ratio. So but most crop tolerance have like the 2 to 3, which can be acceptable for the increase in crop yields. And then they reduces the sodium toxicity. So it's very important. So reduce the toxicity because the potassium is essential nutrient while sodium is a toxic element. So it affects on the metabolic functions of the in soil also, even in the crop. Potassium is cofactor of several enzymes which regulated the enzymes, and sodium used to disturb those enzymes. So ultimately affect the biochemical reactions, soil as well as in plant. So that's why the crop yields used to be reduced. So this is one study we conducted on the garlic. So where we applied like the different concentration of the sodium and apply like the potassium different levels. So if you see here, even like the 75 and 100 kilogram K2O per hectare is a beneficial for the reducing the salinity tolerance, for improving the growth of the bulb size of the garlic. So this is again the different rates. So if you see here, if we increase the salinity, the growth is reducing. And if we increase the potassium levels, so yield is also increasing. So it means like the potassium is very essential for application of the reducing the salt tolerant, the sodium effects. So these are the two major issues which are commonly found in the dryland areas. So if you want to discuss, we can discuss then like I proceed. Otherwise, I will finish these two.
So in that garlic experiment, what was your source of potassium in that?
Here?
Yeah.
So source was potassium sulfate.
Sulfate.
Yeah. Okay, so climate change is actually the emerging problem and which cause the drought or heat effect on the crop yield. So average annual temperature over Pakistan is increasing 0.6 degree during the last century, with the temperature increase over northern areas being higher than over the southern areas, which is 0.8 degrees centigrade versus 0.5 degrees centigrade. And whereas the global, if you think about that, in 2020, it was like 1.3 to 1.5 degrees centigrade. And then 2050, it would be 2.5 to 2.8. And maybe in 2080, these are the global predictions. So it will be 3.9 to 4.5 degrees centigrade. So these are the projected changes in annual temperature in Pakistan in different parts. So if you think about on the top, the mountain areas, northeast, where like a temperature, the temperature used to be expected increase 2.8 degree as compared to south, where like a 2.1 degree is expected to increase. And then similarly, the precipitation is expected like more in south as compared to northeast. And we have suffered a lot of heavy rain for last 5 years, especially in southern areas. So what actually the potassium do with heat stress? So it stabilizes actually the photosynthetic machinery of the plant, and that gives the resilience, maintains membrane integrity, reduce actually the sterility and grain abortions in the rice crop or even in wheat, improve grain filling under heat stress, and most important, the reduce shedding of fruiting structures on cotton. So there are the fruiting structure in cotton, which we is expected to decrease when we apply the potash fertilizer. So application of potash may induce temperature tolerance to wheat by enhancing K concentration. So one of the study I did this like my student, the hydroponic study was conducted in the lab. So there were like three temperature ranges were there, 25 degrees centigrade and 30 degrees centigrade and 35 and 4 levels of potash. So 0 K and 3 millimolar K and 5 millimolar K and 7 millimolar K. Okay, so and there were like 2 genotypes also. So if you see here, shoot weight was like the increase up to like the 30 degrees centigrade, but shoot with like a genotype 1 and then genotype 2. So genotype 1 was heat tolerant, and then the genotype 2 was like the heat sensitive. So similarly, the K concentration was also like with increasing the like a 7 K concentration, the K concentration was like the higher with higher K concentration, and the more like uptake was observed in case of K concentration under high temperature. So might be like the more uptake of water and all these things. So similarly, the proline, which is actually the antioxidant and which affect the tolerance mechanism in heat stress. So if you see a high temperature, was we noticed like a more proline concentration as compared to like the lowest temperature. So which might be provided like the more K concentration in the leaves. Drought is actually the very important issue nowadays in dryland soils. So in 2003, Pakistan was categorized as underwater stress condition, which even surpassed African countries, which more affect like the drought or water shortage. And about 4.4 million hectare land is actually converted into dry land or even dependence on rain nowadays. So due to climate change and further like water consumption would be increased 19% in these areas up to 2050. So this is a mechanism then how K like the affect the especially in drought. So it regulates the instrumental apertures, means closing and opening, and that improve overall the water use efficiency. So one study my student conducted on the potassium as anti-transparent. So means instrumental opening and closing mechanism. So generally plant consume 5% of water available for growth, and most of water is lost through the transpiration. And reducing plant transpiration could be one of the potential approach to mitigate the drought effects on the crops. So one approach is the application of the anti-transparents. So compound those decrease the stomatal size, reducing water loss and increase drought tolerance by stabilizing the structure. So typically like under drought, potassium is known as a poor mains irrigation, because it lasts from plants by regulating the instrumental opening. So it maintain the opening and closing, and ultimately reduce the water use. So we did in this study, we use like the 2 anti-transparents. One is a potassium sulfate as anti-transparent, which is actually the physiological anti-transparent. Another is actually the castor oil, which is also like the film farming, means reduce the diffusion from the plant leaf. And then the water was the normal, which was a control. And then we kept like 3 field capacity moisture levels, 50% moisture field capacity, 75% and 100% field capacity moisture. So dry weight of Spanish, if you see here, so at potassium sulfate, we observed like a more dry weight at 75% and 100%. So results are almost same. So we can save like 1 irrigation water if we apply in the field condition. And then similarly, the potassium sulfate was found like a better anti-transparent as compared to castor oil. So this is the based on the calculation on the amount of water that we saved at the time of application. So if you see here, so at low field capacity moisture as compared to high field capacity moisture, the water was saved more as compared to the medium and high field capacity moisture with the application of potassium sulfate, followed by the castor oil. Similarly, if you see the concentration of the potash in plant, also the more in like, but here, so it's a natural, like when we apply more K, plant used to like uptake more. And generally, sometime like the potash is plant used to uptake the potash in a luxury form. So in past, potash is considered as a luxury element also in case of the uptake. So these are the organic sources which can be used for the reducing the potassium dependency, since like potassium is not available at the time. So these are the organic sources, especially the sugar mill waste, then the rice residue, sugar cane residue, and then the banana residues. So these are rich in potash also. So we can consider like these for the integration. Currently, most of these residues either for burning, we burn it, or used for animals, especially the rice residues or sugarcane residues. So I conducted several other studies, especially in potassium role in mitigation of cadmium contamination in soil, composting of banana residues, and prepared like the several compost, especially the phosphorus enriched compost, and then the potassium enriched compost. Then conducted few studies on plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, especially endophytic bacteria and phosphate solubilizing bacteria or zinc solubilizing bacteria, and development and assessment of value-added fertilizers. Completed various projects, especially integrated plant nutrient management of the various organic sources. Climate resilient agriculture adaptation project by FAO, recently completed before joining this university. Value-added fertilizer, which is by Ingro Fertilizer, is a leading fertilizer company in Pakistan. Formulation of liquid pea fertilizer, which is with Sindh Higher Education Commission project. Establish a soil microbiology laboratory, and then sustainable use of sunflower residue, which is under ongoing project nowadays. So what are the policy and extension gaps for the potassium use? So for agriculture, our recommendations are actually the nitrogen-centric recommendations. So farmers are using, when they don't have a phosphate fertilizer, they don't have a potash fertilizer, they apply nitrogen. So if recommendation is 2 to 1, and they are applying like a 4-1-1. So this is like the common issue. Limited K diagnostic farmers, very limited farmers use like K. Low integration of organic sources for improving, like very necessary for soil health. Weak advisory services or low farmer awareness for the potash fertilizer use. We have already seen in the adaptation slide of the various organic sources. Fertilizer subsidy is actually the imbalance, because the most of K and DAP for P fertilizer coming, we like purchase from foreign. So government is giving subsidy on nitrogen fertilizer and P fertilizer, and is not giving K fertilizer. So farmers are not using like a K fertilizer. So we need to think about the minimal climate smart integration. So finally, the strategies to improve potash use in Pakistan. So elimination of misconception by developing solid guidelines on crop responses. So what farmers have like the misconception about the use or application of K. So we need to develop like the solid guidelines that how K respond, how crops used to respond. So this is the first like the point. Then there is a need to creating awareness for potash use in Pakistan, and we need to think about that, especially under climate scenario or dryland agriculture. Potash is very essential. Then we need to give like subsidizing potash fertilizers also, developing economic potassium recommendations. So farmers can understand when we like provide them some economic values, then they like if they get a benefit, they can like use like these fertilizer also. There's a need to develop digitized maps also. It's very new science nowadays in our country also promoting nowadays. So very soon in years like the maps will be developed, then like the farmers can use like the K fertilizer also. There's need to develop like the K efficient genotypes along with multiple stresses or dual stresses genotypes. Then formulating the climate smart fertilizer formulations for various crops. We need to think about the integration for use of biological and organic sources, especially then the resident crop varieties, and we need to think about the agronomic adjustment, especially the shifting planting dates, diversifying crops, and adjusting proper crop rotation. So take-home message is actually the considering the potassium is climate resilient nutrient rather to luxurious element, what we thought in were thinking in past. It is very critical for strengthening the food security in dryland agriculture. And there's urgent need to rebalance NPK fertilizer strategies. Thank you. Oh, yeah, and because I'm fasting, so maybe.
So where's the source of potassium fertilizer coming from, and what's the cost of potassium sulfate versus chloride?
It's for a bag, if we consider like a bag, it's around 500 to 1,000 rupees in Pakistan.
For which one?
Yeah, so sulfate of potash is costly as compared to muriate of potash. So most of like whatever the companies, even if they blend it with NPK fertilizer, they blend like a muriate of potash in place of sulfate of potash. So yeah, so it's a cheaper. So that's why they used to like the muriate of potash. But like generally the recommendation is like sulfate of potash. But like in market, both fertilizers available, but like because of cost, they used to like apply muriate of potash. But they in long term maybe they would have an issue for the chloride accumulation. And despite when the arid soils are there, very low rainfall over there, very low leaching over there, but like maybe in years back, maybe the chloride concentration will increase with the application of the muriate of potash.
So where are the mines? Is it coming from the Middle East somewhere?
Yeah.
Russia?
So yeah, it's mostly from Middle East.
Middle
Yeah.
East.
I'm just curious on the extension side, where are farmers getting information when they get that subsidy? Does it come with a fertilizer recommendation? Is there any government touchdown? Are companies selling fertilizer with recommendations?
So there is a agriculture extension department.
Okay.
Okay, so they used to give the recommendations for the K fertilizer use. And even government has initiated a large program of subsidies on fertilizers, or even on nowadays and a seed also. But the issue is they are giving like the subsidy on the nitrogen and phosphatic fertilizers. So they sometimes they used to give, but mostly they used to give like on the nitrogen and phosphatic fertilizer, not on K fertilizer. So recommendations are there, they should give, but like, and other is agriculture research department in every province. So people used to analyze the soil and they used to give the recommendations of K fertilizer also. But there is a need to develop like this strong recommendations for the K use.
But even if it's not around K, farmers are having a lot of contact with those government offices.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
I was curious about your anti-transpiration effects and using K. Any potential side effects with that? Because if you're lowering transpiration, you're increasing the heat stress on the plant, right?
Yeah, but we did not notice like the application of the K use as an anti-transparent, but long run, maybe on field condition,
Okay.
maybe that will affect.
That was a lapse.
Yeah, yeah, that was the control condition is.
So while you're visiting us here, you're hoping to do some lab experiments? Or what are those experiments? What are you planning while you're here?
Yeah, so I'm planning for two experiments actually here. One is the different organic amendments, including humic acids, effect on the soil biogeochemistry in calcareous soil. So I will prepare like artificial calcareous soils and then check like different organic amendments, especially the humic acid, then the manure, and then the crop residues, maybe store, vermicompost. We compare like those amendments and then apply different P sources, rock phosphate and single superphosphate, and check like biogeochemistry, especially microbial biomass carbon, enzyme activities, and DOC concentration, and then phosphorus fractionations. So this is the one experiment. Another experiment, I'm planning to check like the root growth under different calcareous levels with the application of the humic acid. So, and so different like the one software, when Rhizo software is expected to use for the scanning of the roots in that study. So that will be the glasshouse experiment. So one is a glasshouse experiment, other is a lab incubation study.
You use that potassium sulfate as an anti-transpirant. What was the concentration of, I mean, was it just like you did it as a foliar, right?
Yeah.
So how much did you have to apply?
We applied 1%.
1%?
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't see any,
No toxic effect, we did not observe.
I don't know much about that. Does it build more complex molecules that contribute to this, or what's the?
potassium stays as a cation in the plant throughout, so I'm not sure. I guess it does, I don't know what it does. I'm not sure, because it would just go into the cells and you would maybe, I'm not sure.
So it regulates actually the potash, different like the biochemical reaction. So move in the soil, cell also, transport and.
It's not part of any organic compound, it's more something that's either an enzyme or
Yeah.
The turgor pressure.
It's because it's a cofactor of the several enzymes. So it maybe synthesis the several enzymes, especially in ribosomes part, because so maybe.
doesn't affect the lowering the, or changing the overall water potential.
Yeah, it can. It's very important in water regulation plan.
But if you're closing the guard cell.
Yeah.
You're,
Yeah.
you're reducing CO2 uptake eventually.
Yeah. There's need to be a study, but that's the short study with small study of master students, so. Okay,
Are there any online questions or?
Okay. Maybe we're good for today. Thank you so much. Dr. Murtaza.
Oh, yeah, for this.
I just do without saying something.
What do you decide?